Hey, real quick before the story starts, if you like lit reading, I've got something new you might enjoy. It's called New Tales Told, original short stories. Same voice, same vibe. Just search for New Tales Told right here in this podcast app. And just so you're not surprised, there may be some ads before the story. Sorry, we have to pay the bills.
"'Tis the season of gifting and halls to deck, and the Who's in Who Newville were in love with new tech. Where can we find Sonos and Samsung and Nintendo, they shouted. Would they find it in one place? This they questioned and doubted. When suddenly a Who yelled, Walmart's the place to start! And each Who added headphones, TVs, and games to their carts. With Walmart, their shopping was done in a flurry. They cried out, "Who knew?" and ordered their gifts in a hurry. Shop the latest tech gifts in the Walmart app.
Cash flow crunch? OnDeck Small Business Line of Credit gives your business immediate access to funds up to $200,000 right when you need it. Cover seasonal dips, manage payroll, restock inventory, or tackle unexpected expenses without missing a beat. With flexible draws, transparent pricing, and control over repayment, get funded quickly and confidently. Apply today at OnDeck.com. Funds could be available as soon as tomorrow. Depending on certain loan attributes, your business loan may be issued by OnDeck or Celtic Bank. OnDeck does not lend in North Dakota. All loans and amounts subject to lender approval.
Welcome to Lit Reading. I'm Don McDonald. O. Henry was the master of the short story twist. His tales were sharp, human, and often featured heartbreak disguised as humor. In the Skylight Room, a young woman rents the smallest room in a boarding house, featuring a skylight through which she can just glimpse a patch of sky. One night, she gives a star an unusual name. That flicker of light in a dark little room becomes something far more moving than she or we could have ever guessed. I hope you enjoy The Skylight Room by O. Henry. First, Mrs. Parker would show you the double parlors. You would not dare interrupt her description of their advantages or of the merits of the gentleman who had occupied them for 8 years. Then you'd manage to stammer out the confession that you were neither a doctor nor a dentist. Mrs. Parker's manner of receiving that admission was such that you could never afterward entertain quite the same feeling toward your parents, who had so clearly failed to train you up in one of the professions that fitted Mrs. Parker's parlors. Next, you ascended one flight of stairs and looked at the second floor back, $8. Convinced by her second-floor manner that it was worth the $12 Mr. Tusenberry always paid for it until he left to take charge of his brother's orange plantation in Florida near Palm Beach, where Mrs. McIntyre always spent the winters, you managed to babble that you wanted something still cheaper. If you survived Mrs. Parker's scorn, you were taken to look at Mr. Skidder's large hall room on the third floor. Mr. Skidder's room was not vacant. He wrote plays and smoked cigarettes in it all day long, but every room hunter was made to visit that room to admire the lambrequins. After each visit, Mr. Skidder, frightened by the thought of possible eviction, would pay something on his rent. Then, if you still stood on one foot, your hot hand clutching the 3 moist dollars in your pocket, and hoarsely proclaimed your hideous and culpable poverty, nevermore would Mrs. Parker be your guide. She would honk loudly the word, "Clara!" She would show you her back and march downstairs. Then Clara, the colored maid, would escort you up the carpeted ladder that served for the 4th flight and show you the Skylight Room. It occupied 7 by 8 feet of floor space at the middle of the hall. On each side of it was a dark lumber closet or storeroom. Inside was an iron cot, a washstand, and a chair. A shelf was the dresser. Its 4 bare walls seemed to close in upon you like the sides of a coffin. Your hand crept to your throat. You gasped, then looked up as from a well, and breathed once more. Through the glass of the little skylight, you saw a square of blue infinity. $2, sir, Clara would say in her half-contemptuous, half-Tuscagenial tones. One day, Miss Leeson came hunting for a room. She carried a typewriter made to be lugged around by a much larger lady. She was a very little girl, with eyes and hair that kept on growing after she had stopped, and that always looked as if they were saying, "Goodness me, why didn't you keep up with us?" Mrs. Parker showed her the double parlors. "In this closet," she said, "one could keep a skeleton, or anesthetic, or coal." "But I am neither a doctor nor a dentist," said Miss Leeson with a shiver. Mrs. Parker gave her the incredulous, pitying, sneering, icy stare that she kept for those who failed to qualify as doctors or dentists, and led the way to the second floor back. $8? said Miss Leeson. "Dear me, I'm not Hetty if I do look green. I'm just a poor little working girl. Show me something higher and lower." Mr. Skidder jumped and strewed the floor with cigarette stubs at the rap on his door. "Excuse me, Mr. Skidder," said Mrs. Parker with her demon smile at his pale looks. "I didn't know you were in. I asked the lady to have a look at your lambrequins." "They're too lovely for anything," said Miss Leeson, smiling in exactly the way angels do. After they had gone, Mr. Skidder got very busy, erasing the tall, black-haired heroine from his latest unproduced play and inserting a small, roguish one with heavy, bright hair and vivacious features. "Anna Held'll jump at it," said Mr. Skidder to himself, putting his feet up against the lambrequins and disappearing in a cloud of smoke like an aerial cuttlefish. Presently the tocsin call of "Clara!" sounded to the world the state of Miss Leeson's purse. A dark goblin seized her, mounted the Stygian stairway, thrust her into a vault with a glimmer of light in its top, and muttered the menacing and cabalistic words, $2. "I'll take it," sighed Miss Leeson, sinking down upon the squeaky iron bed. Every day Miss Leeson went out to work. At night she brought home papers with handwriting on them and made copies with her typewriter. Sometimes she had no work at night, and then she would sit on the steps of the high stoop with the other roomers. Miss Leeson was not intended for a Skylight Room when the plans were drawn for her creation. She was gay-hearted and full of tender, whimsical fancies. Once she let Mr. Skidder read to her 3 acts of his great, unpublished comedy, It's No Kid, or The Heir of the Subway. There was rejoicing among the gentlemen roomers whenever Miss Leeson had time to sit on the steps for an hour or two. Miss Longnecker, the tall blonde who taught in a public school and said, "Well, really," sat on the top step and sniffed. And Miss Dorn, who shot at the moving ducks at Coney Island every Sunday and worked in a department store, sat on the bottom step and sniffed. Miss Leeson sat on the middle step, and the men quickly grouped around her. Especially Mr. Skidder, who had cast her in his mind for the star part in a private, romantic, unspoken drama in real life. And especially Mr. Hoover, who was 45, fat, flush, and foolish. And especially very young Mr. Evans, who set up a hollow cough to induce her to ask him to leave off cigarettes. The men voted her the funniest and jolliest ever, but the sniffs on the top step and the lower step were implacable. I pray you let the drama halt while chorus stalks up to the footlights and drops an Epicedian tear upon the fatness of Mr. Hoover. Tune the pipes to the tragedy of tallow, the bane of bulk, the calamity of corpulence. Tried out, Falstaff might have rendered more romance to the ton than would Romeo's rickety ribs to the ounce. A lover may sigh, but he must not puff. To the train of Momus are the fat men remanded. In vain beat the faithfulest heart above a 52-inch belt. Avaunt, Hoover! Hoover, 45 flush and foolish, might carry off Helen herself. Hoover, 45 flush and foolish and fat, is meant for perdition. There was never a chance for you, Hoover. As Mrs. Parker's roomers sat thus one summer's evening, Miss Leeson looked up to the firmament and cried with her little gay laugh, "Why, there's Billy Jackson! I can see him from down here, too!" All looked up, some at the windows of skyscrapers, some casting about for an airship, Jackson guided. "It's that star! explained Miss Leeson, pointing with a tiny finger. "Not the big one that twinkles, the steady blue one near it. I can see it every night through my skylight. I named it Billy Jackson." "Well, really," said Miss Longnecker, "I didn't know you were an astronomer, Miss Leeson." "Oh, yes," said the small stargazer. "I know as much as any of them about the style of sleeves they're going to wear next fall in Mars." "Well, really," said Miss Longnecker, "the star you refer to is Gamma of the constellation Cassiopeia. It is nearly of the second magnitude, and its meridian passage is—" "Oh," said the very young Mr. Evans, "I think Billy Jackson is a much better name for it." "Same here," said Mr. Hoover, loudly breathing defiance to Miss Longnecker. "I think Miss Leeson has just as much right to name stars as any of those old astrologers had." "Well, really," said Miss Longnecker. "I wonder whether it's a shooting star," remarked Miss Dorn. "I hit 9 ducks and a rabbit out of 10 in the gallery at Coney Sunday." "He doesn't show up very well from down here," said Miss Leeson. "You ought to see him from my room. Did you know you can see stars even in the daytime from the bottom of a well? At night, my room is like the shaft of a coal mine, and it makes Billy Jackson look like the big diamond pin that Night fastens her kimono with." There came a time after that when Miss Leeson brought no formidable papers home to copy. When she went out in the morning, instead of working, she went from office to office and let her heart melt away in the drip of cold refusals transmitted through insolent office boys. This went on. There came an evening when she wearily climbed Mrs. Parker's stoop at the hour when she always returned from her dinner at the restaurant. But she had had no dinner. As she stepped into the hall, Mr. Hoover met her and seized his chance. He asked her to marry him, and his fatness hovered above her like an avalanche. She dodged and caught the balustrade. He tried for her hand, and she raised it and smote him weakly in the face. Step by step she went up, dragging herself by the railing. She passed Mr. Skidder's door as he was red-inking a stage direction for Myrtle Delorme in his unaccepted comedy to pirouette across stage from left to the side of the Count. Up the carpeted ladder she crawled at last and opened the door of the Skylight Room. She was too weak to light the lamp or to undress. She fell upon the iron cot, her fragile body scarcely hollowing the worn springs. And in that Erebus of the Skylight Room, she slowly raised her heavy eyelids and smiled. For Billy Jackson was shining down on her, calm and bright and constant through the skylight. There was no world about her. She was sunk in a pit of blackness, with but that small square of pallid light framing the star she had so whimsically and oh so ineffectually named. Miss Longnecker must be right. It was Gamma of the constellation Cassiopeia, and not Billy Jackson. And yet, she could not let it be Gamma. As she lay on her back, she tried twice to raise her arm. The third time, she got 2 fingers to her lips and blew a kiss out of the black pit to Billy Jackson. Her arm fell back limply. "Goodbye, Billy," she murmured faintly. "You're millions of miles away, and you won't even twinkle once. But you kept where I could see you most of the time up there, when there wasn't anything else but darkness to look at, didn't you? Millions of miles. Goodbye, Billy Jackson." Clara, the colored maid, found the door locked at 10 the next day, and they forced it open. Vinegar and the slapping of wrists and burnt feathers proving of no avail, someone ran to the phone for an ambulance. In due time, it backed up to the door with much gong clanging, and the capable young medico in his white linen coat, ready, active, confident, with his smooth face half debonair, half grim, danced up the steps. "Ambulance call to 49, he said briefly. "What's the trouble?" "Oh, yes, doctor," sniffed Mrs. Parker, as though her trouble that there should be trouble in the house was the greater. "I can't think of what can be the matter with her. Nothing we could do would bring her to. It's a young woman." A Miss Elsie. Yes, a Miss Elsie Leeson. Never before in my house. What room? Cried the doctor in a terrible voice to which Mrs. Parker was a stranger. The Skylight Room. Evidently, the ambulance doctor was familiar with the location of Skylight Rooms. He was gone up the stairs 4 at a time. Mrs. Parker followed slowly, as her dignity demanded. On the first landing, she met him coming back, bearing the astronomer in his arms. He stopped and let loose a practiced scalpel of his tongue, not loudly. Gradually, Mrs. Parker crumbled as a stiff garment that slips down from a nail. Ever afterward there remained crumples in her mind and body. Sometimes her curious roomers would ask her what the doctor said to her. "Let that be," she would answer. "If I can get forgiveness for having heard it, I will be satisfied." The ambulance physician strode with his burden through the pack of hounds that followed the curiosity chase, and even they fell back along the sidewalk abashed, for his face was that of one who bears his own dead. They noticed that he did not lay down upon the bed prepared for it in the ambulance the form that he carried, and all that he said was, "Drive like hell, Wilson," to the driver. That is all. Is it a story? In the next morning's paper, I saw a little news item, and the last sentence of it may help you, as it helped me, to weld the incidents together. It recounted the reception into Bellevue Hospital of a young woman who had been removed from number 49 East 24th Street, suffering from debility induced by starvation. It concluded with these words: Dr. William Jackson, the ambulance physician who attended the case, said the patient will recover. I apologize for the less than sensitive references in this story. I try to read these classic works unaltered, not to endorse those views, but to preserve the stories as they were written and to remember the history they came from. The story's author, William Sidney Porter, better known as O. Henry, lived a life almost as twist-filled as his fiction. Born in 1862 in North Carolina, he worked as a clerk, a draftsman, a ranch hand, even a bank teller, until a scandal sent him to prison, where he started writing short stories under his famous pen name. After his release, Porter moved to New York and poured everything he'd seen, the city's loneliness, its laughter, and its small redemptions, into stories like The Gift of the Magi and The Skylight Room. He wrote more than 600 of them before his death in 1910, leaving behind a body of work that still finds light, even in the narrowest of rooms. Thanks for listening to Lit Reading. I truly appreciate your patronage and hope you'll tell a friend or two about what we do. Also, check out my original short stories at New Tales Told on this podcast service. Also, please tell a friend or two, and if you like what you hear, leave a review at Apple Podcasts. It helps people find the stories. Take good care of yourself. I'm Don McDonald, and thanks for listening to Lit Reading.
If your small business is booming and ready to expand, you might say something like,
"It's happening!"
Booyah!
Yeah! Crushed it.
But if you need someone who can actually help protect your growing business, just say,
"Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there."
And just like that, your State Farm agent can help you get the coverage you need for your new space. For your small business insurance needs, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Thanks for listening all the way to the end. You're officially a story finisher, and I appreciate that more than you know. If you're curious what else I'm up to, check out one of my other podcasts, New Tales Told. It's brand new, original short fiction written and narrated by me. Just search New Tales Told in this app. And thanks so much for listening to Lit Reading, now part of the Storyverses channel at storyverses.com.